Hi, I'm Emma Edwards, back with a new episode of So What, the energy podcast that aims to break things down and help you with tips on how you can take control of your energy. This season, we're tackling some of the ways you can electrify your home, reduce your emissions, and importantly, help save on your energy bills. We've discussed electrification assets at home, like solar and home batteries, in recent episodes. And now it's time to focus in on the asset that takes us to and from home, and could soon be playing a much bigger role for us at home too. So, what's happening in the world of electric vehicles? And how is this evolving technology going to advance Australia's electrification journey? Joining me today is Origin's General Manager of e-mobility and Chair of the Electric Vehicle Council, Chau. Chau, welcome back to So What?
Thanks for having me, Emma.
It was great to get some bite-sized insights from you on EVs in season 3 of the podcast, and I'm hoping we can have a bit of a longer chat about it this time. First of all, tell me about your roles both at Origin and at the EV Council.
At Origin, I run the e-mobility team. So it's a business that provides solutions to help EV drivers at every stage of their journey in getting an electric vehicle. So we provide charging solutions, energy management, and smart charging solutions, as well as helping Australians into their first EVs through our electric vehicles leasing and subscription solutions. So that's my role at Origin. And then as chair of the Electric Vehicle Council, I work with the industry and all organisations in the EV industry to help advance the EV uptake in Australia.
Okay, so let's talk about that EV uptake in Australia and I suppose the rollout of EVs. Where is Australia at on its EV journey?
So last year in 2025, we saw record growth in EV uptake. We saw over 100,000 EVs being sold in Australia, taking the EV market share to 13.4% of total vehicle sales in Australia. So really tipping across that 10% threshold that we all look at. The number of EVs on the road reached over 450,000 EVs in Australia. So it's a really massive milestone for Australia to celebrate. But if we look at where Australia is in terms of the global perspective, I would say we are still lagging the rest of the world. The rest of the world are at the 20-25% EV uptake mark. So we definitely need to grow a lot faster if we want to catch up with the rest of the world, but also be on that path to meet Australia's emissions reduction target by 2035.
What do you think has driven that kind of recent increase, but at the same time, what's the gap between us and other countries, do you think?
So the recent growth in EV sales have really been driven by a number of factors. Firstly, we've seen growth in the number of EV models being available in Australia. So, we went from 16 EV models to over 40, 50 models now available in Australia. We're seeing the prices of EVs come down significantly, so making it more affordable for everyday Australians, as well as the technology really improved in terms of the range. So, the average range for an EV now is over 400 kilometres in one charge, and they're much better, like more fun cars to drive for Australians. So that's the first driver, which is more EVs in Australia, more affordable EVs. The second one is just people understanding the savings that they can benefit from by switching to an EV. So from a saving on fuel and maintenance costs, people could save up to 70% compared to the running cost of a petrol car.
Okay. So the maintenance costs as well as the running costs are cheaper, repairs and things like that?
Yeah. So if I break it down into kind of two main running costs of a car. So firstly, you've got, if you're driving a petrol car, you're paying over $2,000 per annum in terms of petrol costs. Switching to an EV would, shave that off significantly. So the average cost of the power to charge the car would be $700 or lower if you're charging it with solar. So that's a significant cost there. And then because EVs have less moving parts to maintain, the maintenance cost is also significantly lower than a petrol car.
In last season, we touched on vehicle-to-grid technology, and Origin announced a vehicle-to-grid trial late last year. Is 2026 the year that this takes hold, do you think?
Yeah, I definitely think that 2026 is the year that vehicle-to-grid takes off. So a number of kind of factors that will underpin that. The first one is the standards for vehicle-to-grid have been approved by the government. We have seen the bidirectional chargers coming into Australia and being kind of approved and certified, as well as the car manufacturers, the EV manufacturers, being willing to participate in these vehicle-to-grid trials. So Origin, along with a number of other parties, are launching our trials this year to really gather the insights and the learnings on how much Australian drivers can save by enrolling their EVs in vehicle-to-grid programs.
For anyone that might have missed our earlier discussions on that, can we just give everyone a quick overview of what that looks like in the context of an EV?
Yeah, so vehicle-to-grid means that think of your EV as a giant battery. So the battery in each of these cars are 40 to up to 100 kilowatt hour batteries. So very, very big and very significant. These batteries, if you use them not to just drive around, but actually plug into your home to power your home, it can power your home for anywhere from 3 days to a week. You can plug it into the grid. So discharge the power from your car battery to sell that energy back to the grid. So the car is no longer just an asset that get you from A to B. It's also a really valuable energy asset that allows Australians to earn money by selling the power back to the grid when the grid needs that power, during periods of high wholesale prices or constraints on the grid. When power prices are high, that's a perfect time to sell that power back. And then during periods where, it's really sunny, there's an abundance of renewable energy in the grid, that's the perfect time to power up your battery, save it for when your home or the grid needs it.
Okay, so those kind of financial benefits there combined with those lower costs of maintaining a vehicle, it all sort of comes together to paint quite a different user experience for a vehicle.
Yeah, that's right. So, if an EV driver is looking at their car, it's now not just a cleaner form of transport, it's also a very affordable form of transport for people from a running cost perspective, and it's an asset that allows them to earn an income to really kind of subsidize the cost of getting from A to B.
How do people's attitudes or changing attitudes towards EVs, how do you see that in the greater context of electrification? Is the EV like the gateway to more? Are people starting with an EV and then maybe looking at solar or other things? Or does the EV come after other electrification decisions, do you think?
Yeah, so I think, the EV drivers at the moment, I would say, are in the early majority cohort. We've passed the early adopters, we're in the early majority cohort. A lot of these EV drivers already have solar, so they are definitely looking at how they can optimize the use of their solar to charge their EV at zero cost, basically. But what we're finding is that as soon as people get into an EV, they become a lot more engaged in how they use their energy, how they, produce energy. And now they're thinking about how do they trade that energy by, selling it back to the grid. So they become not just consumers of power, but prosumers. So, they're actively engaged in that energy conversation and equation.
On the flip side, what are the barriers preventing people from making the switch to EVs? on that individual level, but also at a country level? You mentioned Australia's a bit behind some other countries at the moment. Is there some reason for that? Is it like a nationwide attitude? Is it an infrastructure thing? What are the big, is it misconception? What are those differences that are causing people not to make the switch or making them reluctant to?
Yeah, I would say the biggest barrier at the moment is, like you said, Emma, that misconception around EVs. I think there's still a lot of mistruth around, concerns on range, on charging, on technology. People are, thinking, well, I can't get from Sydney to Melbourne in one charge, but in what scenario do you ever drive from Sydney to Melbourne in one go? So, there's a lot of just myth that Origin and the industry are constantly educating consumers on. In terms of charging, I would say that for the majority of Australians, charging is a benefit of switching to an EV. Anywhere there is a power point, you can charge your car. So I would say, the choices of charging location has expanded significantly with the switch to EVs. Now, charging is still a barrier for some, but the government as well as industry is actively working to roll out public charging where, Australians cannot charge at their home. So last year we saw a 20 to 24% increase in the number of public charging infrastructure around Australia. So that is also being rolled out to keep pace with the growth in EV uptake.
I feel like that's one of the biggest kind of things holding people back, or myths that you maybe hear, that there aren't enough charging stations, or Australia's too big and we can't put them in enough places and there isn't enough demand. But it's good to know that infrastructure is rolling out as demand increases.
Yeah, I think the some of the media picks up on the queues that this was, I'm gonna say, 3 years ago, when the public charging network along the East Coast was being built out. And that was only during the most busy week during that Christmas period where people are driving up. But that's not everyday driving. Everyday driving is between 50 to 100 kilometres a day, and you can easily do that with an EV without having to charge it that day.
So for someone considering an EV for the first time, maybe they're on the fence, maybe they've heard something in this episode that sort of made them think maybe now's the time, what advice would you give them?
Yeah, the advice that I always give people who are considering an EV is just to jump into one. Just to get behind the wheel of an EV. And as soon as they do, we're pretty confident that they will be automatically converted and never go back. So Origin runs an EV subscription program to enable Australians to try an EV. Because, we still understand that there are hesitations around trying a new technology, and there are questions on range and charging. So people might not be comfortable to go out and buy an EV or lock themselves into, a 5-year long-term commitment. So our subscription program is a 30-day subscription. So people jump into an EV, take it home for 30 days, see if they like it. If they don't like it, they can return the car back to us or swap into another EV. But we found that the majority of the drivers on our program have kept the EVs that they're subscribed to.
And that's really good because people can test it out with their routines and with the local chargers that they would be using, and they can try charging it at home and see what the savings on petrol really are for their lifestyle.
Yeah, we can tell people about our own experiences, but unless people have really, experienced an EV, like you said, in their personal lives, in their personal circumstances, they won't know whether it works for them. And 80-90% of the time, the EV have worked for our EV subscribers and they have kept it. So yeah, we're quite confident that as soon as you jump into one, you'll never go back.
Chau, thank you so much. This has been so insightful, and I'm even more EV curious than I was before. So What is the show that helps you with tips and tricks on how you can take control of your energy bills. Brought to you by Origin. If you'd like to find out more about electric vehicles, check out the Origin blog. And if you enjoyed this chat, stay tuned for more episodes. Make sure you hit follow in the podcast app you're in right now, or check out our previous episodes. See you next time.